Welcome to Experts Explain Trauma. Today we've got Dr. Tammy joining us, and we're going to be talking about the messy middle of healing, and she's going to give us some great tips on how to manage ourselves in the messy middle of healing. So let's get started. Okay, Dr. Tammy, we're going to be talking about the messy middle of healing. I'm kind of excited about this, and it's really important because people get, I was just saying before we started the recording that so often people get derailed during this time. There's a lot of confusion. So I think we're going to help clarify that. So our first question for today is, why does it feel like I'm going backwards when I've already done so much work?
That's a very, very loaded question. And I think it might vary for people. When thinking about this question, right, the first thing that comes to mind, and when I think about the people that I'm working with, and I also, you can think about your own life as well, in your own sort of growth healing journey. What comes to mind is grief.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot around um trauma and trauma healing is grief work. And I don't think it gets labeled as such. And I think that's why the messy middle can be really difficult for people. Because, like at the beginning, you're not really exploring much of the grief. You're much doing like an understanding work, you're building resources, you're getting to, do a lot of things. There's the honeymoon period, like, oh wow, like that. Yeah, this makes sense. This makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. And there a lot around sort of kind of like traumatic injury, which is an injury of helplessness and hopelessness, is the fact that it's a lot of losses.
It
Right.
is.
And the other thing that I will add to this, and we will open up about what the grief looks like, because oftentimes people think that, grief is just about the loss of someone. It's not just a physical loss. Grief is, losses of things that didn't happen, experiences that you didn't get to have. In fact, a lot around life, naturally, without trauma. I mean, you can't avoid trauma in life, is grief, because sometimes we set out into the world, and a lot of us have expectations of what life should be like. As children, we dream. Even if you had childhood trauma and you didn't really dream and you were just surviving, you have a picture of what life should be. And the messy middle, that you will experience in life is life most of the time just does not turn out the way you want it to turn out. And I will be very specific for people healing from childhood trauma, any type of trauma, complex trauma, relational trauma, betrayal trauma, however you position your difficulty, is you lost a lot. And it's difficult to sort of, measure how much of this loss are you experiencing in this phase of life right now. Loss of what didn't happen, because with childhood trauma, which is my specialist area, is so much didn't get to happen. It's not just about what happened, it's also about what didn't happen and what will never happen. And like with childhood trauma and relational trauma, we lose people along the way as well. Like, if we're thinking about, we think about sort of healing from parental injury, family injuries, family abuse. You need your family, right? And once you start to heal from those people, it's almost like the relationship is not the same. For some people, they have to, in order for them to keep their wellness and well-being, they need to remove themselves. It's really difficult to work this journey of life when that's what you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
For the
That's what I
people
had to
that
do.
didn't get to, for the people that didn't get to remove themselves, and I can relate with this on a level, is you start to understand that you can't change people. See, that's the grief part. I can't change my mom. I can't change my dad. I can't change my sister. I can't change whoever it is. But I still have to have a relationship with these people, and it's never going to be. So that's another grief, right? Like people think that, and I think maybe there's misconceptions about healing as well. And that can sort of kind of like disappoint us. We set this expectation of, again, what we feel like once I heal this, I don't know who sold that to you, but I never sell that to my clients. In fact, I make it clear from, the very beginning, healing is very messy, right? And relationships will change for you once you start to recover yourself. Because for me, healing from trauma, particularly childhood trauma, self-worth trauma, is reconnection with the self. Because you've never fully been home with yourself. When you've had that injury of helplessness and powerlessness from a young age, is what you've known and what people have known you for would have been your adaptations. The
Oh,
way you coped, or the mask that you wore,
yes.
the parts of you that people pleased, the part of you that self-abandons quite easily, the part of you that's so erratic, the part of you that isolate, the part of you that shuts down. And when you've made relationship with this part and you start to come home to yourself, you start to sort of reconnect with yourself, some relationship, many relationship, relationships will change. Now that's another grief, right? You will see people differently. You would have befriended people who only befriended your traumatic adaptations. And, once you start to be yourself and demand more for yourself, as you should have, they might not want to be in your life anymore. And that's very lonely. And that I walk that lonely path with people a lot of the time, the messy middle, right? And, it is deep, deep grief. And then you come to different seasons of your life, maybe sort of, trauma's really impactful, right? Like, the way you showed up in like work, or then there's different layers to it. But I think the reason why the middle is so messy is just ask yourself, am I grieving something? Right? How much grief am I holding on to here? And the thing about grief is we can't problem solve it. You see, like I
Oh,
can give you sort of tools to cope. I can give you tools to cope. Like Lisa, I've spoken to you before, and, we've talked about like, where do we start? And I said, look, you need to learn to listen to your body, listen to your emotions and self-soothe. And I can give you all of those tools. I can help you learn what self-soothing is. I can help you learn like, nervous system regulation. Like grief is the
you have to
messy
go
bit.
through it.
You go through, we sit in that darkness of grief. We
Mhm.
befriend grief. There's nothing the other can do other than sit with you. I only sit with my clients in it. This is the part where tools off, human to human. Tell me what that's like to sit with that. That, you've now come to the realization that these relationships will never be. You've now come to the
Yeah.
realization that so much happened. There will be parts of your life you never get to have back.
Hmm.
And the uncertainty of what that would look like, which obviously with trauma, there's a lot of anxiety. Like our nervous system is already wired for protection anyway. So, and grief is messy, right? Like I can't tell you that it's sadness. There's a lot of sadness, but it's grief, it's anger, it's rage. And, also like we're coming to healing from trauma for most people. We're not very good at meeting the rage or the anger and all of the emotions that surrounds grief. Grief is also very physiological. It weighs heavy on the body, right? It changes things biologically for us,
Yeah.
right? I was speaking to someone this week who is in the messy middle. And, one of the other things that I say is don't be too hard on yourself. Because oftentimes when we just carry our trauma and, we can be very hard on ourselves and we see the defectiveness, like, we can just unfavorably compare ourselves to other people and see that, like, obviously, and you will see because this is a social media world, everyone seems to be sort of kind of like adapting, living, and it can make you so down on yourself, right? And I'm like, life is really tough. I just want you to know, and I think this is the compassion bit of it, where you just acknowledge how tough life is. And I will tell you this. So I always sort of kind of like go back to Inside Out to help people understand how tough life is. And the very first Inside Out one with the little girl Riley. I don't know whether you've seen it, Lisa. Have you seen
Mm-mm.
Inside Out? Oh, you need to
Mm-mm.
watch Inside Out. So Inside Out
Mm.
is a Pixar movie, right? Really, I think they got it right a lot without my criticism, but it's really nice to have a movie that depicts how our inner world works.
Yeah.
So, because you haven't seen it, I'll have to give you a little bit of a background. So like, there's a little girl, Riley, who they were trying to depict her inner world, and you need to watch Inside Out and you let me know what you think about it.
I
And
will.
so they showed Riley. Riley is definitely the the ideal childhood you want to have, like, a very stable home, two parents, two loving parents. She's an only child. She had a really colorful childhood and upbringing, and they were able to show different emotions that she went through, when she would be sad, and then they would try to make her happy, and all of a sudden like joy comes out, and then she would have disgust, and then they will make her happy, and she's so they depicted like almost like what's happening inside the human mind. And the first Inside Out, there's another one that came out last year. I've seen that too. There's joy, there's sadness, there's disgust, and what's the other emotion? There's four of it. So there's joy, sadness, disgust. If I remember, I'll tell you, but I don't want to take too much time away from that. But they will show the interaction and the interplay. Anger, right? So there's joy, disgust, anger. Of course, like it's a movie and they're trying to sort of, really just bring out these complex ideas as simple as possible. Anyways, so what happened was Riley moved home. I can't remember where she moved from. Very, like it's based in America, right? So she moved cities quite far away from where she'd known, and she must have been around about probably 10 or something like that when she moved, and that completely dismantled her inner world. And given that Riley doesn't have, a traumatic upbringing, you know, she had a very healthy childhood. I won't even say normal, like healthy, like what we saw, lovely community, can't even see any legacy burden, right? Mom and dad, really healthy people, and they gave her everything. And her inner world shattered. And I was saying, like, imagine Riley, really good upbringing. And this shattering, Lisa, was the fact that the natural instinct was for her mind to prevent grieving the loss of her home,
Oh.
right? So what happened in Inside Out was joy took over. Every time she felt sad, sadness was shut down. No, 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 no. You can't feel sad. Joy took over. In fact, she was encouraged to feel happy, like even mom also felt sad about the move. There were so many things that it's a transition. That's a first experience. That's a type of grief, right?
Mm-hmm. It
And
is.
for someone who had, you know, a great foundation, you would think that it should be smooth and plain sailing. We're not like, our mind is very, I won't say it's fragile, but it's not designed to hold grief like that. And that's, you want to sort of kind of objectively measure her grief. You can say that's like a little grief, but I don't objectively measure anyone's experience because, everyone's experience. You tell me how it feels for you. Let me know. I don't believe in sort of small t trauma, little t trauma, like whatever. I think trauma is how much damage, how much rupture did this cause your nervous system. And, you have to sort of say that to someone. So that disrupted it. The natural pathway for sadness, you can say sadness, but if they really want to depict it, they would say grief, right? Because like she was angry every time like anger tried to take over. So the way they showed the inside of her mind was they called it the headquarter. And of course, like each emotion would try and sort of kind of handle the handlebar. you know Anger would try to hold it on, and joy would be like, no, 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 we can't do that, we can't do that. Like, and sadness just wanted to come out, and joy would override it.
Yes.
Even mom's joy, dad's joy, or like dad's
Wow.
pretense. So you can see naturally how grief can ease, like we're not wired to hold grief,
Right.
right? And they never depicted anxiety here, which I think could surface in the part two of it. They brought anxiety along, which I think, it's a little bit, she was 13 by then. I think, we experienced anxiety way before, but, they never brought anxiety in. It was just those 4 or 5 emotions. So naturally, our mind is not necessarily designed to hold grief and will try to bypass it. And this is where I would question, is there grief showing up? There would, and we can't solve it. We hold it.
Yeah.
Because eventually for Riley, I mean, so much went wrong with
Mm-hmm.
bypassing, she couldn't bypass, like they couldn't stop sadness. She needed to feel the sadness. And eventually she tried to run away from home. A lot of things sort of kind of like went awry. She ran out of like disconnection, dissociation, and she ran out, like she couldn't do it anymore, to the point where she needed to sit with the sadness and cry it out in order for her to manage the bulk of the transition. And of course, it's Riley's life. She had a good foundation. She had somewhere to fall on. Parents were there, like she was held,
Yeah.
right? So that for me can be where people feel like I'm being stuck, where
Yes.
actually this is a very normal part of healing.
And wouldn't you say that with grief, there's so many different emotions, right?
Yes.
Within grief. In that little packet, there's a lot of really intense emotions.
Yes, very intense.
This is really brilliant, seriously, because I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking, yeah, like I'm thinking about, there was grief and that I didn't grow up in a healthy family. I missed out on that.
Yes.
That I didn't, I mean, even like I didn't have a healthy relationship with a sibling. That I didn't have a normal family. I have gone through that where I've sat and was sad about that stuff. And I'll tell you, I wanted to shut that sadness down. Seriously, I wanted to get away from it because it's really uncomfortable. But I've gone through some of the grief. There's probably still more there because I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. And it can visit you at any time. So it's not a linear journey. It's not a linear journey, Lisa. It can show up at any time. There's rage in there.
Yes.
There's rage in there. Yeah, a lot of rage.
That's a good word for sure.
In there. Yeah. Uncertainty. Like deep chronic sorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
So what can we tell our listeners? Like, what would be something that would help them? Would it just be sitting with those emotions?
Identify it. It.
Yeah.
You have to identify it. What am I grieving, and what's showing up for me right now? Right? You have to identify it. I help my clients identify it. That's what I do. I help them identify it, and I ask them, tell me what that's like. And, once they identify it, you hold it with compassion. I think once you sort of connect with it, you give it a voice, you give it a place. There's resonance, right? There is a part of you that is able to hold it. You create space for it. Grief has to sit. We're not saying you have to go away. We hold its hands. It then doesn't become something we don't know. It doesn't consume us. It becomes a part of our system. It becomes a part of us. But when we don't identify it, we don't know what's going on. And we can make it worse with the stories that we tell ourselves. Why am I not healing? Like I'm just really bad at this. This is really poor. And then those stories just compound our problems even more because we're not dealing with what is showing up for us. And that can be the problem.
And it's confusing. And I'm so glad I asked this question because I didn't expect this answer, but it is obvious that this is the absolute answer. And it's confusing, especially for someone like me who did a lot of early healing alone.
Yeah.
And so it was slow and very painful because I didn't know that I was actually grieving. And of course, I personally try to run away from grief.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable sitting in grief. I know
That's
the
the way
importance
it
of it,
is.
but
That's the way it is for everybody. I told you Riley tried to run away from it. If Riley can try to run away from it with all the resources, yeah, oh yeah, you're gonna run away from it with even sort of kind of lesser resources than her. That's just normal. It's not like,
yeah.
we're not born to be able to hold grief.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, and it's true. That is definitely something that we have got. You're right. There's no shortcut around it.
Uh-uh.
You can't fix it. You
No.
have to sit with it and go through it
Yes.
and allow
Yes.
yourself to go. Because, like I said, there's a lot of emotions that are in grief alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we do need to work through those emotions. And there's
Yes.
nothing wrong with
Yes.
those emotions, but they can be kind of
No.
intense. So
No. No.
I always suggest in something like that, you do have a support system around you when you are going
Yeah.
through this part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like you have to, like, you might work with people, it can be somatic, can be sort of kind of just letting the energy sort of run through you, like the rage part of it, like, you let that move through you. Sometimes it's just conversational. Like I hold my own grief from my own relational trauma. Like, a good outlet for me was just talking to my sister. Got three sisters, and you know, can sort of kind of have that dialogue, and sort of we meet each other and we're able to hold space for things. I allow my anger a lot. I noticed that that was something that I wasn't doing really well, and I just give space to it. I journal about it. But it just, I'm very aversive of giving people tools on how to meet their parts. I think we have that wisdom naturally once we get to know our parts, and we would know what we need. You have to know your grief. You have to sort of explore it, like, what part of it is showing up. Label it, and you work through that. And if you're working with someone, maybe that's what they need to help you label, but it can also visit you at any time, different season of your life, maybe motherhood, it could be middle age. And one thing, menopause and perimenopause can activate this because the body is more under-resourced during these phases of life. Right, there's less, there are studies here, and if you want me to give you, there's studies that have been done for women that the things that have been buried tend to come up more during perimenopause and menopause.
Oh, that makes complete sense.
So,
Boy.
for people that have been doing the healing work and then they're reaching this stage, your body might just be starved a little bit more of resources, of embodiment, embodied safety, and the grief might show up more. It can just show up more, like just, and you have to sort of just meet your body to sort of know what is going on here, what resources, what safety does it need. Because we meet grief with safety. I've met grief, like, my own grief and sort of like 60-year-old grief, like 70-year, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, you have to
Doesn't
work
go
through it.
away.
Yeah, it
You have
doesn't
to
go
work
away.
through it. And the adaptations, when your grief is screaming at you and you're not meeting it, then you develop adaptations around it. This is where like derailments can come in more, like maybe perhaps then you find yourself eating more, binge eating gets worse, addictive behaviors gets worse, isolation, just the adaptation gets worse. So like, and that's why people might think, huh, I'm doing all of this work. Why am I not overcoming? Why has my eating disorder suddenly come
Yes.
back? Why has my binge eating suddenly come back? Why has the depression come back? Why has the anxiety suddenly escalated? Why this? Why that? Why is the OCD worse? This is a new study. And we're knowing more about it. It's not new in terms of experiences for us, but I guess we're talking about it more.
Yeah. Well, we're learning so much more about trauma and the
Yes.
effects of it. And I mean, it's just crazy how deep it can go into our body
Yeah.
and our mind and
Yeah.
how deeply it can affect us and our
Yeah.
loved ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a ripple
Absolutely.
effect for sure.
It is. It is a ripple effect. It is a ripple
Yeah.
effect.
Well, this question though is perfect. And I think this alone is going to help alleviate so much confusion when we're
Uh-huh.
in that messy middle, because
Yeah.
you're right. It's exactly one of the things we have to process is the grief of
Yeah.
all the things that we missed out on.
Yeah, transition is like the way, I think naturally, like, there's grief in life, you have expectation of, this is how life should be for me in my 40s, in my 50s. I should have all my family together, and and it doesn't happen that way. And yeah, it's okay for you to be disappointed. You're human. It's okay for you to mourn the loss of that expectation. It's okay for you to grieve the things that didn't happen. You're seeing your children. Suddenly you're reminded that, like, my teenage years were filled with abuse, and like my child now is a teenage, and that comes back. And actually, for the listeners as well that might be in the messy middle, the thing about trauma is, like, the more safety you have, the more things will come to the fore as well. So like when people have been doing a lot of work, and they've been bringing safety into the body, your body will remember more. And that can also be the messy middle.
Ugh.
Is though I recently had that where, you know, um, there's more safety. Of course, there's more flashbacks because there's less dissociation. It's
Oh,
not a bad
right. Because
thing.
you're in a safe place now, so
You're in a
everything can
safe
start
place
coming
now.
up.
Yeah, yeah. It's gonna drip, drip, and drip into your consciousness.
That's true. You're
Yeah,
so right.
yeah.
Wow. The
So,
messy
so,
middle.
so, 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 so trauma healing isn't linear. I think, just take your healing journey as a lifelong journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there's so much season here. That's the way I take it. And I'm speaking as a therapist here, as well as someone who carries my own wounding and I'm healing. And I just see it. It's a lifelong journey for me. It's part of my self-development. It's part of my journey through life. It's part of my growth. Things come up to me. I thank myself, and I thank them for coming to me, because I would rather, like, I said to myself, when was it, 2 weeks ago, that okay, maybe I'm not here to live long, because of course, nothing is guaranteed. Right? I don't know how long. Maybe I'll live long, maybe I won't, but I don't want to focus on that. I want to live gracefully. I want to live knowing myself. And I think when we have that reframe of constantly just meeting ourselves with curiosity,
Yes.
what's happening at this stage of my life rather than what's wrong with me,
Ooh, yeah.
that's a better reframe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm constantly meeting myself, meeting my emotions. Well, that's what I want to do. I want to, like I was asking, well, what does it mean to sort of kind of like live gracefully? For me, is to be able to meet myself as things show up for me. Like, I'm going through like the jungle of motherhood right now. There's a lot of grief there as well, because
Yeah.
way blown my mind, because expectation like that I came into this with is not what I'm meeting here. Right? I had this fun idea that is going to be rosy because I was a really lovely auntie. Like, my auntie role was, like, you could call me, like, you give me a star. I was, I was really, like, I thought so much about my nephews, my nieces. They love me. Like, they tell me that. I know that. Like, I invest, and it was fun. And motherhood isn't fun for me.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. It's a jungle.
But then you
And
get to be a
so,
grandma, and let me tell you, that is amazing.
yeah, I'll wait because I can give them back. The
That's
problem is,
right.
like,
That's right. You get the
I
best of
returned
them.
my
You get the
toddler.
best of them for sure.
Yeah, it's a non-refundable transaction that I'm doing. So, and I think there's been grief there for me, because, like, I had dreamed of motherhood for a long, long time. In this sort of kind of like, well, a little bit obsessive when I was a teenager. I don't know why, but I really loved, I helped raise a lot. I love kids, Um, but it's been very shocking. It's been very shocking that, like, I love my child and I'm giving everything to him, but I don't like parenting. And that's a surprise for me.
Yeah.
And I can acknowledge both, that I will, my child will have everything that it needs. But if I come back to this world, I'm a full-blown auntie. I'm not choosing that type of parenting. No. I just get to enjoy being an auntie. But I've tried this, and no, if it's the same type of setting and world, so that for me, like, there's an expectation that hasn't been fulfilled in
Yes.
motherhood for me. And I'm constantly like meeting that, because there's a lot of frustration for me that I'm having to hold. And this is where this sort of kind of like reflection has come from. Just keep meeting yourself
Yeah.
with the frustration. Like, I'm not afraid to hone it. I think my sisters are so surprised, because I'm constantly like, why didn't you tell me?
He didn't give me a heads
Like, I'm
up.
like, you let me down. They were like, you liked kids. What did you want us to tell you? Of course, it's hard. And I'm like, nah, you didn't tell me. I'm mad at my mom for sort of not preparing me,
That's funny.
for a lot of things in terms of like, marriage. And, I'm just like, I'm not, I'm making light of it now, but these are deep emotions for me.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
and
Frustration.
our closest relationships, which is usually our spouse or our partner and our children, are going to trigger
Yeah.
us. It's going to set
Yes.
stuff off in us
Yes.
for
I just
sure.
miss my whole life.
It wasn't as complicated.
No, I just super miss my whole life. So I'm grieving the freedom, because I'm
Yeah.
having to
Yeah.
full on accept my reality right now, that I can't have the freedom, Lisa, and I'm grieving that. Like, I get an influx of like, oh my God, this is what I should. Part of me, like my adventurous side, just wants to be on the move, wants to travel, and I'm having to sort of like, can't be about you now. We can't do this now. Traveling is not fun anymore. We're fully immersing ourselves into this season, because I wouldn't do it. I tried it with my toddler, and we did travel a bit. I would travel with family, but I'm not going on a holiday, like a resort type stuff without family.
Yeah.
Like, I need women to come with me so that, they can share the responsibility. Because we've tried it. Me and my husband tried it, and he was just like babysitting him in another country, and we didn't have the tools, and we like, no, we can't do this. Right. And so, like, my adventurous side, I'm constantly trying to sort of kind of like contain that. Like, we can't do this now. We're in season of motherhood. So I am facing those emotions, and they can be very big for me. And so that's it. Like, the goal is to meet yourself. Try and meet with this part that is saying that, like, what's going on, and it will lead you to, I can imagine that it might lead you to grief, or it might just be that you're having the wrong expectation of healing, and you need to have a much more adjusted, reasonable
Yeah.
expectation of what is love.
Yeah. Expectations is a big thing. I mean, that's
Yeah.
something that we do really have to be careful of.
Yeah.
And there's, we have a lot of expectations in life, and we
Yeah.
don't, some of the things we don't even realize, but that's something that I'm really paying attention to within myself is paying attention. Like, when I go into situations, what am I expecting? Is that reasonable? Just because I just went into everything, I found myself going into everything with expectations and then being disappointed, and then, but were my expectations realistic?
Yes.
So expectations is something that we do need to kind of manage and watch.
Yeah. And what are you expecting of life? The other thing that I say to my clients is, well, sometimes we have unrealistic expectation of life too, of what life should be. That, like, it should be this sort of kind of like happy. I should have a passion. I think people need to check their expectation, because I have this frank conversation with my client that much of life is mundanity. It's mundane stuff. And I think when you've been grappling with trauma, adaptations, and healing, and you just think people are looking for this carnival. There's no carnival.
It's
no
true.
Carnival.
It's true.
Right. Sometimes people are grappling with boredom, and then, like, they don't know how to hold it.
Yeah.
And then again, there's more adaptation, thinking you have to overdo, which then sort of kind of again wrecks your system. So I think those are the things that you would check. What expectation are you having of life? Because, a realistic expectation, what expectation are you having of healing, and definitely check out grief. Those are the three things that I would sort of say here.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is great. I mean, seriously, because that is a key component in the messy middle of healing is
Yeah,
grief
yeah,
and all the
yeah,
things that you're losing. And
yeah.
so that was great advice. And I want to just reemphasize to the listeners, it's not something that you can fix. It's
No,
something that you need to sit with
yeah, you
and
meet.
identify what you're
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
grieving, and then
Yeah,
allow yourself to work through those emotions because there are a lot
yeah,
of emotions within grief
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
outside of
There
our
are.
trauma. So, yeah, thank you,
Yes.
Dr. Tammy. This is great. This is
No, my
great.
pleasure.
Did this resonate with you, or do you have questions for our experts? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so that you can get more insights on trauma healing.